When people talk about attraction, the conversation almost always begins with appearance. Society constantly emphasizes looks, style, and physical beauty as the primary factors that determine romantic interest. While physical attraction certainly plays a role, psychology reveals something much deeper. Physical appearance may capture a man's attention, but emotions are often what determine whether he stays emotionally attached. In fact, when many men think about the women who had the greatest impact on their lives, they often remember a feeling long before they remember a specific physical feature. This happens because human beings are emotional creatures. We experience life through feelings. We remember moments not only because of what happened, but because of how those moments made us feel. A particular conversation, a shared laugh, a moment of support during a difficult time. These experiences leave emotional fingerprints on the mind. Over time, those emotional memories come far more powerful than surface-level impressions. Think about someone you've never forgotten. Chances are it isn't simply because of the way they looked. It's because of the emotions connected to them. Maybe they made you feel confident when you doubted yourself. Maybe they brought peace into a stressful period of your life. Maybe they understood you in a way that few others did. Those feelings become attached to the person, making them memorable long after specific details fade. The same principle applies to romantic attraction. A man may initially notice a woman's appearance, but what often separates a passing attraction from a lasting connection is the emotional experience she creates. If every interaction leaves him feeling valued, appreciated, understood, or genuinely happy, those emotions begin forming a strong psychological bond. This is because the brain naturally seeks positive emotional experiences. People are drawn toward those who consistently make them feel good about themselves and about life. When a woman creates that kind of emotional environment, her presence becomes associated with comfort, enjoyment, and fulfillment. As a result, thoughts of her naturally return again and again. What's fascinating is that emotional memories often become stronger over time. Physical beauty can become familiar because the mind adapts to what it sees regularly. But meaningful emotional experiences continue creating value long after the initial excitement fades. A kind word during a difficult day, unwavering support during a challenge, or the ability to make someone laugh when life feels heavy. These moments tend to stay in the heart. Psychologists have long observed that emotions influence decision-making more than many people realize. Even when individuals believe they are making purely logical choices, feelings often guide their judgments beneath the surface. This means that when a man starts imagining his ideal partner, he isn't only thinking about appearances. He's often imagining how he wants to feel in the relationship. He wants connection. He wants understanding. He wants peace. He wants happiness. He wants someone whose presence adds something meaningful to his life. That is why some women become unforgettable. Not because they were the most physically attractive person he ever met, but because they consistently created positive emotional experiences. They made him feel accepted. They made him feel seen. They made him feel important. They became associated with emotions he wanted more of in his life. The truth is that attraction may begin with what the eyes notice, but lasting attachment often grows from what the heart experiences. Men remember the woman who made them feel respected. They remember the woman who made them feel alive. They remember the woman who made ordinary moments feel special. Because in the end, a man's dream woman is rarely defined by appearance alone. She is often defined by the emotions he feels every time she enters his world. If there is one feeling that has the power to transform attraction into deep emotional attachment, it is the feeling of emotional safety. While many people assume that excitement, chemistry, or passion are the strongest forces in a relationship, psychology often points to something much quieter and more powerful. A man may be attracted to many people throughout his life, but the woman who makes him feel emotionally safe often occupies a unique place in his heart. She becomes the person he trusts, the person he opens up to, and eventually, the person he struggles to imagine losing. Emotional safety is not about being perfect. It is not about agreeing with everything he says or never having disagreements. Instead, it is about creating an environment where he feels accepted, respected, and understood. It is the feeling that he can be himself without constantly worrying about being judged, criticized, or rejected. Think about how much pressure people carry every day. Men in particular are often taught from a young age to hide vulnerability, solve problems on their own, and appear strong even when they are struggling. As a result, many become extremely careful about who they trust with their genuine thoughts and emotions. They may share surface-level conversations with many people, but only a few individuals ever gain access to their deeper feelings. This is where emotional safety becomes incredibly powerful. When a woman creates a space where a man feels comfortable expressing himself, something important begins to happen. The emotional walls he normally keeps in place start coming down. He becomes more open. He becomes more authentic. He stops feeling like he has to perform and starts feeling like he can simply be himself. Psychologists often explain that trust is one of the foundations of human attachment. People become emotionally connected to those who make them feel secure. Not secure in the sense of avoiding challenges, but secure in the sense that they can be honest without fear of constant judgment. When a man feels that kind of acceptance, he naturally becomes more attached because emotional openness creates emotional intimacy. One of the reasons this feeling is so attractive is because it is rare. Many people spend years trying to impress others. They worry about saying the right thing, acting the right way, and meeting endless expectations. But when someone comes along who makes them feel accepted despite their imperfections, the experience feels incredibly freeing. You may notice that a man who feels emotionally safe around a woman begins sharing things he normally keeps private. He talks about his goals, fears, frustrations, memories, and dreams. Not because he is forced to, but because he feels comfortable doing so. The relationship becomes a place where he can remove the emotional armor he wears around much of the world. Another important aspect of emotional safety is respect. A woman who listens without immediately criticizing, who seeks understanding before judgment, and who values his perspective even when she disagrees creates an atmosphere of trust. This doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. It means handling those conversations in a way that protects the connection rather than attacking it. Over time, emotional safety creates something far deeper than attraction alone. It creates peace. And peace is one of the most underrated qualities in any relationship. Excitement may create sparks, but peace creates stability. Excitement may attract attention, but peace creates loyalty. The woman who provides emotional safety often becomes the person a man wants to talk to after a difficult day. She becomes the person whose opinion matters most. She becomes the person whose presence brings comfort rather than stress. And because those feelings are so valuable, they become difficult to replace. Because when a man finds someone who makes him feel understood, accepted, and emotionally secure, he is no longer searching for excitement alone. He is protecting a connection that feels like home. While emotional safety creates trust and connection, there is another feeling that can make a woman unforgettable in a man's life. It is the feeling of inspiration. Deep down, many men are not only looking for someone who understands them, they are also drawn to someone who awakens the best version of who they can become. The woman who inspires him often leaves a lasting impact because she creates an emotional experience that extends beyond the relationship itself. She becomes connected to his growth, his ambition, and his belief in what is possible. Think about the people who have influenced your life the most. They were probably not the ones who constantly pointed out your weaknesses or reminded you of your failures. More often, they were the people who saw potential in you, even when you struggled to see it yourself. They encouraged you during difficult moments. They reminded you of your strengths. They helped you believe that you were capable of more than you imagined. The same principle applies in romantic relationships. A man may admire beauty, intelligence, or charm, but the woman who inspires him creates something much deeper. She makes him feel motivated. She makes him feel capable. She makes him want to improve, achieve, and grow. Her presence becomes associated with possibility rather than limitation. Psychologically, this is powerful because human beings naturally seek environments that support their growth. We are drawn toward people who encourage our strengths and help us move closer to our goals. When a woman consistently brings out a man's confidence and ambition, he begins associating her with progress and positive change. That emotional association becomes incredibly meaningful. What's important to understand is that inspiration is not the same as pressure. There is a huge difference between motivating someone and trying to control them. A woman who inspires does not constantly criticize or demand perfection. Instead, she communicates belief. She sees potential, She offers encouragement. She reminds him of what he is capable of achieving. This creates a very different emotional experience. Pressure often makes people feel inadequate. Inspiration makes people feel empowered. Pressure focuses on what is missing. Inspiration focuses on what is possible. And because of that difference, one pushes people away while the other often draws them closer. Many men secretly crave this feeling more than they admit. Life can be demanding. There are responsibilities, setbacks, disappointments, and moments of self-doubt. During those times, having someone who believes in them can become incredibly valuable. Not because that person solves every problem, but because they help restore confidence when confidence begins to fade. You may notice that men often speak fondly about women who supported them during important stages of their lives. Sometimes it wasn't a grand gesture. Sometimes it was a simple expression of belief at exactly the right moment. A few encouraging words, a reminder not to give up, a sincere acknowledgement of effort. These moments can remain in a person's memory for years because they are tied to emotional growth. Another reason inspiration creates such a strong bond is that it helps a man feel good about himself. And ultimately, people are drawn to those who consistently bring out positive emotions within them. If a woman's presence makes him feel stronger, more confident, and more motivated, he naturally begins valuing that connection. Over time, he may realize that her influence reaches beyond conversations and shared experiences. Her belief in him affects the way he sees himself. Her encouragement affects the way he approaches challenges. Her support affects the way he pursues his goals. She becomes part of the emotional foundation that helps him move forward. This is why some women become impossible to forget. They are not remembered simply for what they said or did. They are remembered for who they inspired someone to become. They helped create a version of him that he was proud of. And that emotional connection leaves a lasting mark. Because the woman who believes in a man's potential often becomes the woman he remembers whenever he reaches it. As emotional safety creates trust and inspiration encourages growth, there is another feeling that quietly influences attraction in a powerful way. It is the feeling of positive energy. While people often focus on appearance, status, or compatibility, they sometimes overlook how much emotional atmosphere affects human connection. The truth is that people naturally move toward those who make life feel lighter, brighter, and more enjoyable. A woman who consistently brings positive energy into a man's life often becomes someone he wants to see, talk to, and spend time with again and again. This doesn't mean she is happy every second of every day. It doesn't mean she never experiences stress, sadness, or difficult emotions. No one lives that way. Positive energy is not about pretending that life is perfect. It is about the overall emotional experience someone creates when they are around. It is the ability to bring warmth, encouragement, hope, humor, and balance into interactions. Think about the people you enjoy being around the most. Chances are they make you feel good without even trying. Conversations with them leave you feeling better than before. Time spent with them feels refreshing rather than draining. They bring a sense of ease that makes you look forward to seeing them again. That emotional effect is incredibly powerful because it influences how people remember the experience of being with them. Psychologists often explain that human beings are strongly influenced by emotional association. We connect feelings to people, places, and experiences. If someone consistently creates positive emotions, our minds begin associating that person with those feelings. Over time, simply thinking about them can trigger a positive emotional response. This is why a woman who brings warmth and positivity into a man's life can become emotionally magnetic. He begins associating her with laughter, comfort, optimism, and enjoyment. Her presence becomes something that improves his emotional state. And naturally, people want more of experiences that make them feel good. One of the most attractive forms of positive energy is genuine enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is contagious. When someone approaches life with curiosity, excitement, and appreciation, it often influences those around them. A woman who celebrates small victories, enjoys meaningful conversations, and finds joy in everyday moments creates an atmosphere that feels alive. Humor also plays an important role. Shared laughter creates emotional connection faster than many people realize. It lowers stress, builds comfort, and creates memorable experiences. A woman who can laugh with a man, enjoy lighthearted moments, and bring joy into difficult situations often leaves a strong emotional impression because she becomes associated with happiness. Another important aspect of positive energy is emotional balance. Life is filled with challenges, disappointments, and unexpected difficulties. A woman who consistently reacts with perspective, resilience, and calmness creates a sense of stability. She doesn't add unnecessary chaos to every situation. Instead, she helps create an environment where problems feel manageable rather than overwhelming. This emotional atmosphere becomes especially valuable over time. Initial attraction may be fueled by excitement and curiosity, but long-term connection often depends on how people feel in each other's presence. If a man's interactions with a woman consistently leave him feeling more relaxed, more hopeful, and more positive, her value in his life naturally increases. What makes this feeling so powerful is that it cannot be faked for long. Real positive energy comes from authenticity. It comes from a genuine appreciation for life, a healthy perspective, and the ability to bring encouragement without pretending that everything is perfect. People can sense the difference between forced positivity and genuine warmth. Eventually, her presence begins feeling like a place he wants to return to, not because she is perfect, but because being around her improves his experience of life. She becomes associated with good memories, positive emotions, and a sense of emotional comfort that is difficult to find elsewhere. Because when a woman consistently brings light into a man's world, her presence stops being something he simply enjoys. It becomes something he genuinely misses whenever it's gone. As powerful as emotional safety, inspiration, and positive energy can be, there is another feeling that often affects a man on a much deeper level than many people realize. It is the feeling of being genuinely appreciated. This may sound simple, but appreciation has an extraordinary psychological impact because it touches one of the most basic human desires, the desire to feel valued. Many men spend much of their lives in environments where their worth is measured by results. They are expected to perform, provide, solve problems, overcome challenges, and keep moving forward regardless of what they may be feeling internally. Whether in their careers, responsibilities, or daily lives, they often receive attention for what they achieve rather than for who they are. As a result, genuine appreciation can become surprisingly rare. This is why a woman who sincerely values a man's efforts often creates an emotional experience that stands out. She notices things that others overlook. She recognizes his consistency, his dedication, his kindness, and his character. Instead of focusing exclusively on what he still needs to improve, she acknowledges what he is already doing well. Psychologically, appreciation is powerful because it reinforces emotional connection. Human beings naturally move toward people who make them feel respected and valued. When someone consistently recognizes our efforts, we feel seen, we feel understood, we feel important. Those feelings create a strong emotional bond because they satisfy a deep emotional need. Think about the difference between being expected and being appreciated. When something is merely expected, it often goes unnoticed. But when it is appreciated, it gains meaning. A man who works hard, supports others, and tries to do the right thing may rarely hear acknowledgement for those efforts. When a woman notices and expresses sincere gratitude, she creates a feeling that is both rare and memorable. What makes appreciation especially attractive is that it is different from admiration. Admiration often focuses on achievements, status, or visible success. Appreciation goes deeper. It recognizes character. It acknowledges effort. It values qualities that are not always obvious to the outside world. A man may receive praise for what he accomplishes, but appreciation makes him feel valued for who he is. This distinction matters because lasting relationships are built on more than accomplishments. Life changes, circumstances change, success rises and falls. But when someone feels appreciated for their character, that connection remains meaningful even when external conditions shift. Another reason appreciation has such a strong emotional impact is because it creates positive reinforcement. People naturally become more motivated to continue behaviors that are recognized and valued. When a man feels appreciated, he often becomes even more invested in the relationship because his efforts feel meaningful. He sees that what he contributes matters. Of course, genuine appreciation cannot be forced or manipulated. It must come from sincerity. Empty compliments lose their value quickly because people can sense when words lack authenticity. Real appreciation comes from paying attention. It comes from noticing the little things, the everyday efforts, and the qualities that make someone special. You may notice that relationships often become stronger when appreciation becomes a regular part of communication. Instead of constantly focusing on shortcomings, both people begin recognizing each other's contributions. This creates an emotional atmosphere where respect and gratitude can grow. For a man, being appreciated often feels like emotional acceptance. It reassures him that he is valued not only for what he achieves, but also for the person he is becoming. That feeling creates loyalty, trust, and emotional attachment because it addresses a need many people quietly carry throughout their lives. And that is why the woman who genuinely appreciates a man often leaves a lasting impression. She gives him something more valuable than praise. She gives him the feeling that his efforts matter, his character matters, and his presence matters. Because when a man feels truly appreciated, he doesn't just feel admired, he feels deeply valued in a way that is difficult to forget. After emotional safety, inspiration, positive energy, and genuine appreciation, we arrive at the feeling that often matters more than all the others combined. It is the feeling a man has about himself when he is with a particular woman. This is the hidden factor that influences many relationship decisions, often without him even realizing it. Because in the end, men do not simply choose a woman based on how she looks, what she owns, or even what she says. They are profoundly influenced by how they feel about themselves in her presence. This is one of the most important truths in human psychology. People are naturally drawn toward environments that bring out their best qualities. They want to feel confident rather than insecure. They want to feel respected rather than diminished. They want to feel understood rather than judged. And they want to feel authentic rather than pressured to become someone they are not. When a woman consistently creates these feelings, something powerful begins to happen. Her presence becomes associated with a better version of who he is. He feels more confident when he talks to her. He feels more motivated when he shares his goals with her. He feels calmer when life becomes stressful. He feels more comfortable expressing his thoughts and emotions. Over time, these experiences form a strong emotional connection because they affect his relationship with himself. Think about the people who have had the greatest positive influence on your life. They probably did more than simply make you happy. They helped you see strengths you didn't fully recognize. They encouraged qualities that were already inside you. They brought out confidence, courage, kindness, or determination. In their presence, you felt like the person you wanted to become. The same dynamic often exists in romantic relationships. A woman becomes unforgettable when she consistently helps a man feel aligned with his best self. Not through control, criticism, or pressure, but through the emotional environment she creates. She encourages growth without making him feel inadequate. She supports him without trying to change his identity. She believes in him while still accepting him as he is. Psychologists often explain that people develop stronger emotional attachments to individuals who positively influence their self-image. In simple terms, when someone makes us feel good about who we are, we naturally enjoy being around them. Their presence becomes emotionally rewarding because it strengthens our confidence and sense of self-worth. This is why some relationships feel energizing while others feel exhausting. In one relationship, a person may constantly feel criticized, compared, or misunderstood. In another, they may feel respected, encouraged, and accepted. The emotional difference between those experiences is enormous. One creates distance, while the other creates attachment. A man who feels like his best self around a woman often begins imagining a future with her because her presence enhances his experience of life. He associates her with positive emotions, personal growth, and emotional fulfillment. She becomes part of the environment in which he thrives. What's fascinating is that this feeling doesn't require perfection. In fact, perfection is neither realistic nor necessary. The woman who becomes a man's dream woman is rarely the one who never makes mistakes. She is often the one who consistently creates an atmosphere where he feels valued, inspired, respected, and emotionally secure. Over time, he may begin realizing that life simply feels better when she is around. Challenges seem more manageable. Success feels more meaningful. Conversations feel more fulfilling. Even ordinary moments become more enjoyable because of the emotional experience attached to her presence. And this is ultimately the feeling she controls. Not his decisions, not actions, not his future. She influences the emotional environment that shapes how he experiences himself when he is with her. And when that environment consistently brings out confidence, peace, purpose, happiness, and authenticity, she becomes incredibly difficult to replace. Because the woman a man dreams about is often the woman who makes him love the person he becomes whenever she is by his side.